Kyle.
Kenny.
Kyle.
All right, guys.
Kenny.
I hope this works. Otherwise, I'm out of ideas.
Oh, thank Hestia, that's over.
What happened to Kyle?
I swear he was with me when you turned that thing on.
Wait, can you hear that?
What?
Oh my gosh!
Ah,
Kenny, get in the robot.
yes, sir.
It's over 9,000!
Configure the language logic interface for Japanese.
Kawaii-Fi.
Kawaii-Fi.
Konnichiwa and welcome to a new episode of Kawaii-Fi Radio, the podcast where we look at the world of anime and manga. I'm your host, Kyle Kaiju, and joining me are my co-host, Coco and Kenny. How you doing, guys?
Kenny.
I thought we fixed you!
There is no
Apparently
fixing me.
Apparently not.
Well, as you might have guessed by the intro, everything in this episode is to do with kaijus. And if you don't get why we were talking in our names, you might want to go back and listen to episode 9, because that'll explain all of that.
Bit of a shameless plug on the last episodes there.
We do this by design so that you'll go back and listen to our stuff.
All of it. There's a continuing story arc. It's incredible. You'll never guess what's going to happen. But what we do want to talk about is these amazing short form animes that we've been seeing this season. And I mean, let's start with Ao-chan. Now, I guess, quick preface, Ao-chan is not for all ages.
Yeah, Ao is a girl in, I believe, middle school?
Middle, I think she's high school.
High school, yes.
And she has been dogged her entire life leading up to now by her father's influence. Her father being
he's a
an
writer?
author of...
The king of perverse books.
Yeah.
probably the best way to explain
like,
it.
Make out Paradise times 10.
From Naruto, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the best description I've heard to actually describe it.
Yeah.
But the series revolves around this girl called Ao, and
she wishes to escape this influence, doesn't she?
She wants to save up money, and she wants to do really well in school.
She wants her independence.
Yeah, she wants to be independent of her dad.
She wants to escape her father's influence.
But of course, there is a caveat to that. There is a man, a boy, a guy who likes her rather a lot.
She rather cruelly calls him King of the Normies, Kijima, isn't
But
it?
we're still not sure if that's a translation thing or...
I feel like there might be... I'd like to know what the term is in Japanese. Maybe we can pick it out and see what it actually is.
I wouldn't be surprised if it had entered the vernacular for geek and nerd culture, but, you know.
But I mean, despite the subject content, it's quite... I don't know, heartwarming, I find it.
Yeah, because she constantly thinks that Kojima is coming on to her, and he's like... she has been really influenced, guys. Like, she can't distance herself from this perversion that her father has, you know, nonchalantly thrown out for all of her life. So she knows about stuff that even
she probably shouldn't.
Yeah, he doesn't know about a lot of the stuff that she's thinking of, I think.
It's
like,
quite hilarious.
She's They
are just perpetually flawed characters, which we have come to love in things like Kaguya-sama and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I can't help but fall in love and want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as much as I feel like this is also a bit of an excuse for fan service or putting characters into cliche situations, the undercurrent isn't cliched at all, is it?
No.
It's really kind of sweet.
Kind of on the subject of fan service, Amazing Strangers.
Yeah. Now, I was fully prepared for this to be Creep Central.
I was hoping there would be sort of a mystery to it, that the whole pretense of this little robotic toy girl who thinks she's real, a la Buzz Lightyear. I was hoping that pretense would last a little longer, lead to some hilarious interactions, but nope. They are toys and they know it.
But I mean, like, I kind of like that because in Toy Story, like, the amount of time that Buzz Lightyear continually denied where he was kind of like, oh my gosh, you know, he's going to find out at some point and it's going to really hit him and it's going to be awkward and cringe.
Which is weird when you think about it. If Buzz Lightyear doesn't think he's a toy, why does he freeze when Andy enters the room?
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
These are the
I completely
questions
missed
we
that.
probably shouldn't ask
These are the
because we
questions that
could
keep me
be
up
here
at night.
forever.
But the series revolves around a guy who decides, I've never bought a figurine for any of the anime series
Yeah,
that I liked
Buida
before.
Haruto, his name
Yes,
is.
and he decides, you know what? I'm gonna buy this one for my favorite show, and then
'Cause
these figurines start multiplying.
Yeah, because
They
he's
start to come alive.
which is what he feared, because he even says, if I start buying figurines, there's a slippery slope. One will be the cause of many, many more.
I wonder if like one of these little figurines is going to pull up his credit card account and go, "That's where we came from."
That's kind of reminds me of that time that you pocket bought a few things from your eBay wish list.
So I made an
a few years ago.
eBay. I was walking around in London and I had my phone in my back pocket and
As
it was
you do.
quite warm, so my pants got a bit sweaty, and
No, but
I
then
believe
You took the phone out, messed around with it, put it back in
Yeah.
your front pocket this time.
Yeah,
And-
and I believe that because the condensation was on the front of it, it made a bridge between my thigh and the phone.
3 items were bought from
Oh.
his eBay.
£300 worth of figurines.
And you know what? It was 2 steps away from buying that Evangelion cell, which was about
Yeah.
£1,900 or
Yeah.
something, wasn't it?
I'd be in big trouble if that happened.
Yeah, there's no going back on that.
Now, listeners, you might be thinking this is a fantastic excuse for you guys to use for when you buy something on eBay. And you are right. It is.
Yeah, if you had bought that.
Fortunately, I managed to get all of the people to cancel the orders and explain that the account had pocket purchase things.
I feel like
But,
if you had actually bought that Evangelion cell, you would have spent a bit longer making that decision, though.
I can neither confirm nor deny that accusation.
Could you take that back, Kyle? Could
It's
you?
really hard because it's the scene where Unit 1 goes berserk.
I mean,
Oh.
I've walked around your house. I've walked through your halls where you have
Yeah.
cells from different animes in lovely frames, just lovingly adorning your walls.
I can't help
Yeah.
it. I like what I like.
I think it's fine
So
art.
just to go back to Amazing Strangers real brief, what I like about it is that Buida doesn't seem creepy to me. He seems he's just dedicated.
Enthusiastic.
Yeah.
He's an enthusiast. He's not. It feels kind of like there's a bit of a self-insert going on here. Maybe someone
Yeah.
watched Toy Story when they were younger and thought,
That
kind
wouldn't
of
surprise.
This is certainly
know.
aimed at a particular crowd, but I don't think it dehumanizes them or shows them in a callous kind of a light.
which is very
Which
good.
is very good, yeah.
Yeah.
It's surprising
It's
as well
wonderful.
because often we do see that are portraying the otaku culture in any format, despite, often the writers being otaku culturals themselves. They may create some questionable behavior through self-insertion or through putting on behavior of the characters.
I'm
Absolutely.
hoping that this means that these people, this sort of group of people aren't feeling so ostracized by society anymore. They feel more that it's along the parlance of normal everyday life,
Yeah.
so they don't have to hide it. They can
Exactly.
be more relaxed about what they're into.
There's openness and positivity to it.
Now, on the note of things going awry and many purchases being made, which it actually has no connection to this at all, Attack on Titan.
Nice
my
segue,
God.
Wow.
Kyle.
Yeah, terrible segue. So
It is consistently epic.
it is.
Isn't it?
It is.
What, Kyle segue or Attack on Titan?
Both.
I think the last.
Kyle is always no. Yeah, it's Attack on Titan. Sorry, Kyle. I love the fact that there's no fan service at all. There's just epic service.
Everyone in there is just so unbelievably epic. It's
Yeah.
so good.
And there's such different characters as
They are.
well.
So emotional. I can't obviously
Yeah.
utter any spoilers.
So it's technically episode 18 of season 3 or episode 58 of overall season.
58, I've been counting.
For those who have heard the hype,
it's worth
It's-
watching.
yeah.
Wow. And we will go into this in more depth, but it says a lot when they said for episode 58, one of the guys from Wit Studios went out on Twitter and said, make sure you have your tissues
I
handy.
think that
And
was
you're like,
episode 55.
was it 55?
The one that we
or
just watched.
Was it?
That was 58, I'm pretty sure.
Still
It's
55.
50
I may be
something,
wrong.
and it's a big one. It's episode 18 of season
Yes.
3.
There's
And-
50 episodes of holy hell drama for you guys to watch.
and it's fantastic, and there's plenty more coming too.
Binge it.
But we should get on to what we are going to be talking about today, and that is this episode where we're looking at the biggest and baddest villains in Japan's media, the giant monster, or also known as the Kaiju. Now, with the new Godzilla film out in cinemas, we thought it's a great time to have a look back at where this love for giant destructive beings came from, and where it's the king of the monsters himself, or something from outer space. So we'll be talking about the recent animated Godzilla films on Netflix, sticking with our animation theme, and 2 other series that focus on giant monsters in one form or another, Knights of Sidonia and Attack on Titan. But before that, let's head to the newsroom.
Making headlines.
Really?
Sort of.
Anime news.
More delays to this season's anime broadcast and big news for the live-action Akira movie. This is Kawaii-Fi Anime News. Funimation has acquired anime distributor Manga Entertainment, for the company's merging operations in the UK. The merger will create the largest anime distributor in the UK and Ireland, and thanks to the merger, new anime titles are now available on Funimation's UK streaming service, including some never broadcast in the region before. The live-action adaptation of Akira has received a premiere date, with a long-awaited cult classic expected in cinemas on May 21st, 2021. Thor Ragnarok director Taika Waititi has been confirmed as directing the film a year after he revealed his desire to head the project. The Hollywood adaptation will be set in New Manhattan, with a project planned for 2 films, each adapting 3 volumes of the original manga. July star dates for many animes have been confirmed in the past fortnight, with many more expected to come in the coming weeks. The upcoming anime in the humanoid monster Bem series has announced a July 7th start date, with the series celebrating the franchise's 50th anniversary. Upcoming Viking anime Vinland Saga will also start airing on the same day, with the first 3 of its 24 episodes all airing together. Original anime, and I'm going to challenge with this one, Kochika Wakaiki Nobunaga has been listed with a July 8th premiere, alongside the release of many key visuals for the show. The original series by Studio Dean focuses on historical figure Oda Nobunaga, starting in his early teenage days with a sword. Grand Belm and another original anime for next season, and the anime adaptation for manga series Dr. Stone have both been listed with a July 5th premiere date in Japan, and a second spin-off series in the Magical Index franchise is also starting this July, with a certain scientific accelerator due to premiere on July 12th. And whether the series will run for 24 episodes like the others in the franchise has yet to be confirmed. And finally, Season 2 of Teasing Master Takagi-san has announced the series will begin airing on July 7th as well, likely running for 12 episodes. Delays to 2 more series have been announced this fortnight, following a 3-week delay to The Shield Hero earlier this month. The new adaptation of Fruits Basket will have its 9th and 10th episodes delayed due to the airing of the French Open on Japanese TV.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Attack on Titan's international simulcast will now be delayed from Sundays to Wednesdays due to an issue with one of Funimation's sub-licensees. A company who it shares its library with have been caught releasing the episodes before their Japanese broadcast, resulting in Funimation now receiving the episodes only after airing in Japan. Upcoming sci-fi love story Hello World has had a September 20th release announced for Japan, with the film being headed up by Erased and Sword Art Online director Tomohiko Ito. The film is set in Kyoto in 2027 and features a time travel paradox. Heading to the bookshelves, and popular food manga Food Wars is coming to an end in the coming months, according to Weekly Shonen Jump, with the manga due to finish in 3 chapters. A big announcement will also be made on the day the series ends, though what that may be is a mystery at this stage. The weekly series has been running since 2012, spawning 3 anime series and over 300 chapters. And in dub news, it might be 8 years late, but an English dub for 2012 comedy series Nichijou My Ordinary Life has been announced by Funimation, with the series releasing on home media in late July this year. The series was originally licensed by Bandai Entertainment, but the dub was cancelled in 2012 when the company stopped distributing home releases. And that's your anime news for the week ending June 3rd, 2019.
Akira. Akira. Akira.
I could cry.
I know, it's
I'm
been
that
in the works
happy.
for so long, and it's going to be adapting the manga.
The manga! The masterpiece that took him 10 years to write. They're going to do it Oh my! Because I mean, when I first knew about Akira, it was the manga, and I read all of it, and I just reread it, and I was just like, how did this guy do all of this by himself? It is absolutely stunning.
It is. It is an incredible piece of
wow.
work. But that's going to be very exciting when it does come in. I believe filming's taking place in California, and I think we reported a few episodes back that it was a case that I think the California Film Board went, if you do it here, we'll give you a tax break, and suddenly we have a release date.
I really can't wait to see
work,
this.
It seems.
We are going gold class to see that.
Oh, yeah.
Front and center. No, not front. Middle and center.
Middle and center.
Yeah.
You don't want to be front and center, craning your head up.
I'm camping out in front of Hoyts. I will get a tent.
But, I mean, on the note of, Akiras, we do have another Akira in the news as well, which we didn't have time to mention that. Akira Toriyama. And what's he done this time, Coco?
Well, France has knighted him.
Oh, that's pretty exciting.
It's great.
Fantastic.
He didn't
What's
turn
wrong
up.
with it? Of course not.
He doesn't turn up to anything.
He didn't turn up to being knighted.
Who turned up instead?
So the French government conferred the Chevalier de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres, which is Knight of the Order of Arts and Letters. It's a pretty decent
big deal.
decoration that happened May 30.
I'm
at the
just
French
imagining
embassy in Japan. He didn't have to go far. It was in Japan. And his publisher rocked up. And he was like, Mr. Toriyama is always very grateful to his French fans who have appreciated his work since the early days of his career. Unfortunately, Mr. Toriyama almost never attends ceremonies, and so I have the honour of receiving this award in his place. He instructed me to tell you how honoured he is to receive the award from your country. I'm assuming he did a very deep bow after this.
Oh, yeah. So I have a few thoughts here.
Yep.
If it was in France, I could understand, but it's in Japan. It's probably in Tokyo, which, from my knowledge, that's an hour and a half on the Shinkansen for him.
Too far, obviously.
How much of a Goku thing is this to do?
I know,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
It's
starting to wonder.
It's not food, therefore he has not attended.
I wonder if Goku is a
What
bit
is
of a
knighthood? Can I
self-insert.
eat it? Yeah, exactly. Is Goku now a self-insert of Toriyama? Is there...
I think Toriyama has a few more brain cells left than Goku, though.
So just so you guys know, another person that has received this knighthood from France is Otomo Katsuhiro, who wrote and created Akira.
So, well, there you go. They just like Akira.
And
That's what it comes down
Takeshi
to.
Kitano of Takeshi's Castle.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. But on that note, we do need to talk about naming conventions because that's all changing, isn't it?
Yep.
So Japan's foreign minister and the prime minister have announced that they're looking to have the international standard where they originally... So in Japan, names are written surname then first name. But when they came in contact with the West, they decided to adapt Western naming conventions to then have their first name, last name when they were in international environments. So Shinzo Abe is actually Abe Shinzo, the prime minister. Akira Toriyama is Toriyama Akira,
etc.
Now Shinzo Abe has asked to be referred to in his traditional naming convention, Abe Shinzo.
That's going to take some getting used to.
It is, and
to be honest, I'd like to the number of times that I have mistaken, on this show even, I've been like, I want to do it the right way, but when you read English text dealing with these naming conventions, it's hard to tell.
It is
a lot of the times.
The amount of time we search through entries to find out, what a particular artist has done, and aren't sure what is the right order.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll find, say for example, 4 sources with two with the naming convention swapped an equal amount of times, and it's just hard, especially if they don't have a Wikipedia page, because they do mention on Wikipedia in which order they are.
Yeah, it just kind of makes me feel like uncultured swine when I don't know which is the last name, which is the first. I feel terrible.
Interestingly, though, so far there haven't been any news organisations which have adapted the new naming conventions.
No, there haven't.
Which is really quite rude.
It is, to be honest, because I remember it was when it was put out, and no, nothing.
Nothing's changed.
No.
But that's a shame. But we should head on to what we need to talk about today, and that's to do with giant monsters.
Kawaii-Fi.
And now for our feature presentation.
Now featuring.
And as you can imagine, the Tamako Market sting doesn't really work for Godzilla.
Oh, but it's so adorable. I love that show.
Now that's a crossover.
Yes. Now let's look at this. That we're talking about the big, the bad, the ugly, the very ferocious Kaiju series, which all kind of really, everyone thinks of Kaiju, they think of Godzilla. There are other places, but I think Coco, you've done a fair bit of research in the history of this, haven't you?
I've tried.
You've tried.
I've tried to grab it all together.
Surprisingly harder than we first thought.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything that's particularly focusing on Well, I guess the thing is, monsters are a bit difficult to define because in Japanese, the word kaiju can mean a few different things. So I don't know, maybe that on a personality side, we can define it as something that's antagonistic to human beings, but not necessarily. I don't know, but on the appearance side, they're different species, so we can't obviously discuss Gendo Ikari. In the same sort of
I don't know. He's a bit of a monster.
Oh, he is.
Not quite a giant monster, but certainly.
Well, we'll come back to Neon Genesis in a moment, but let's go back to the origin of the whole giant monster idea, because I believe it actually might have an Americanized influence in there.
Yeah, especially Godzilla. That was influenced by King Kong. And there is actually what's considered to be a lost film called, I think it's King Kong in Edo, I think it's called.
No way.
Yeah. They took King Kong and they sort of ran with it a little bit.
All I'm seeing is Dragon Ball right now, with someone going, large giant ape, Ozuru, and then just crashing around.
This is just another instance of the things where the West and the East have just sort of traded ideas, tossed them across the fence to each other, back and forth.
I mean, we've stolen Godzilla to make our own films now, so
Yeah. So obviously monsters are of great psychological importance. They've been turning up in folklore for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it's kind of tricky to figure out why that is. It's on the surface because it's fantastical and impossible. We look at like a bear feeding on some small animals and think, oh, crikey, good thing that wasn't me. And then, I don't know, we superimpose a monster.
But I think with Godzilla, let's start with that because he's the biggest and the baddest. He's an allegory, a massive allegory, because he was released first in 1954. And as we remember, the World War II had ended maybe like less than a decade ago.
With the bang.
1945.
With a couple bangs for the Japanese people, unfortunately. Like, so many people who saw Godzilla and, like, it was nothing that... there was nothing funny about it to them.
No.
They felt it very deeply. Because it's the radioactivity that gives the monster its power as well as its
you look at its
size.
origin story, and the origin story is around having nuclear weapons tested to create a either wake up or create a super powerful beast.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just got to give a brief shout out because Godzilla was portrayed by two actors, Nakajima Haruo and Tezuka Katsumi.
This
relation
is back.
to
Oh no relation to Tezuka.
No.
Now this is back in the day when it was the big suit.
Oh yeah, they needed two people because one person could only hang out in the suit. One person could only operate the suit for about 3 minutes before they'd pass out.
3 minutes?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I thought you were going to say like 3 hours, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
They sweated it out in these suits. Hey, so
you could say that they really sweated for their art.
Yeah, they did really. But yeah, it's interesting because Japan also has yokai, which is not what we know as demons, but we've given that name to them.
Yeah. Which has always been an interesting point of contention with subs and dubs as well, because yokai aren't fundamentally like when we think demons, we think of the Greco-Roman European idea of demons.
Yeah, the
horns,
Catholic
red skin,
demons.
scary fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Japan is more diverse and very almost fairy-like. In
Well,
some
it's
ways.
it's as diverse as their idea of gods in Shinto. It's it's not just there is one big bad, or is there is one chronological or hierarchical system.
There's a spirit of this river,
Yeah.
a ghost of this
Yeah.
mountain, a monster
Yeah.
of this cave.
This
there
is
are
the rich history of folklore, and manga and films and anime have been inspired by folklore since their inception. For example, there's one called Gegege no Kitaro, which was a manga first published in Weekly Shonen magazine. I think it's also known as Taro's Monster Hunt.
That does ring a bell,
Yeah.
actually.
It was an anime produced by Fuji TV from
yeah.
'68. And then, of course, just going back to all the kaiju.
Oh yeah.
After Godzilla, we had Sora no Daikaiju Raidon, aka Rodan.
Oh,
You guys recognize that
yeah.
name? Yeah, actually, he has been acquired by the same production company that released the most recent Western adaptation of Godzilla.
As he King of the Monsters.
Yeah, so he's going to turn up in that film
Oh.
as well as others.
You know what's actually funny? I was researching this as well. I found some footage of the original Rodan movie in 1956, and I've seen it before on SBS.
Oh really?
Yeah, there was
Yeah, SBS.
there's we owe them so much for our education in Japanese culture. But yeah, it's mostly because there was always one scene which just stuck in my mind. And this is using like ancient kind of special effects which will probably make George Lucas proud, perhaps even inspired him. But yeah, there's a scene where Rodan, this terrifying beast, is flying low over a forest and over like a desert road covered in cars. And he flies with such speed that he creates a sonic boom which blasts the trees apart and blows these cars off the road. And I don't know, I was a fan of the show Thunderbirds way back in the day. And that just stuck out at me, and I thought, oh, wow, this is something like out of that, and I love it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, there is, despite there being all these live actions, there is a lack of animated kaiju films. And this probably comes down to a few things. Animes have a very humanist focus on their characters. So if you're watching something with giant monsters, you want to see the main character triumph against, this massive challenge, beating them, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
And that's what the hallmark of kaiju films is about humanity losing to the monsters in one form or another.
Yes, there was actually some criticism about the new Godzilla movie that it didn't focus enough on the human elements, their struggles and their...
Don't care.
Yeah, it's...
I came here to watch a giant monster wreck a city.
Yeah, this is a film where the words are King of the Monsters and Godzilla are contained. I'm expecting two things, and one of them isn't Eleven getting over her family issues.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
11?
From
Stranger
Stranger
Things.
Things. The actress from that who plays a young psychic girl is in the new movie.
And
Good
she
actress.
has family issues?
I don't know. I expect so. That's
Yeah,
how these movies go.
That's how these things go. It's
Well,
like,
is she a
Yes.
big, massive monster that's threatening the city? Then no, I don't want to
No,
know
exactly.
that much about it either. Like when I was a kid, when I went to see these films, and it just focused so much on the human.
Do you remember the old Godzilla
Experience.
with Matthew Broderick?
Oh my, the one in
It took forever.
1990...
98, I think.
98,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it took forever
did.
for him to show
Way
up.
too long.
And
And
they...
no offense to Matthew Broderick, but I think he's a wet towel of an actor. So
You guys want to know something funny?
what?
That wasn't the end of that movie. The post-credit scene in that where the
Yep,
little baby Godzilla opens, that was in fact the start of an animated TV series.
an American animated or?
Oh yes, this is in the same vein as Men in Black, the series. This was Godzilla, the
I
series.
think I remember seeing this at some point on TV and going, "What on earth is this?"
Exactly. This is basically, I actually have the plot here. The baby Godzilla imprints on Matthew Broderick.
Oh,
Did it
no.
ever take off?
It had 2 series, lasted
Two
for 2
seasons.
years. As far as connection to the actual Godzillaverse and all of Godzilla's friends like Rodan and Mothra and enemies like Ghidorah, very little connection. There was a plot arc involving Mechagodzilla, but otherwise, not a lot.
Now, going back to why there's like a kaiju anime, the other reason is the demographic that anime is aimed at. Now, we will watch anime as adults, and many do in Japan. But in the Western, in Japanese culture, the core audience is, ages 13 to 25, say, for argument's sake. And as a young boy or girl, you'd rather imagine being the hero, wouldn't you?
Probably.
I think, and also you'd want the human focus because you want to relate.
Also explains the prevalence and the massive popularity of mecha and isekai genres in Japan, because due to fantasy receiving a great power and being popular, that's going to be very popular with the shonen and shoujo audiences.
And you say that, and this came up in my research as well. I was trying to find like kaiju-oriented animes. Could find very little which didn't also have a massive mecha focus.
Yeah, I mean, when I had a look, and apologies because I couldn't really find a lot either.
I have 7.
Yeah?
That's it. So I managed to track down...
Dragon Ball one of them?
No.
With the great ape. Is that really a kaiju? It's not.
It's not really.
No.
It's Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd call that a kaiju.
I guess so,
a
but
kaiju
it's
is on its own.
Yeah.
though, isn't it?
It's not you don't have a herd of kaiju, for instance, except for King of the Monsters,
I'm
rated
now
PG
picturing
in
just-
cinemas June.
I am now picturing just a herd of Godzillas.
Be pretty terrifying.
Would you call that a murder or a destruction of Godzillas?
I call it a
An
cataclysm.
annihilation.
Yeah. So the ones I managed to track down, there's Chrome-Shelled Regis, which is, once again, giant robots fighting off with mobile cities. There's Neo Ranga. There's Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is, very
classic.
obviously giant robots as well. Blue Gender, which I had a brief look at, looks interesting. Knights of Sidonia, which is debatable as to whether they're kaiju or not because they're in space.
Yeah.
There is Die Guard, which, to be honest, feels like it is aimed at children. It feels like Voltron versus giant monsters.
Yes.
And that people consider Voltron a kaiju anime for some reason too. And then, of course, Attack on Titan, which is giant monsters in a way.
I found 4 myself, and I'm not sure about 2 of them, plus a couple of the ones you mentioned, such as Attack on Titan and Sidonia and stuff. I had SSSS Gridman.
Oh, yeah.
Which is boy finds a giant robot, which helps him fight off monsters. Brave Police Decker. Boy meets transforming vehicular giant robots, which help him fight robots. So, common theme. Claymore, which is knights fighting monsters, some of them giant.
Okay.
And Tokiro, which is a world of food wherein people grow stronger by fighting and killing and eating.
Isn't that part of the One Piece universe?
Technically, no, but there have been crossover episodes, including with Naruto and Dragon Ball.
If we're going to talk about monsters in general, we can always talk about Naruto because that had the Bijou.
Ooh, you're not wrong. You'd call those kaiju, wouldn't you?
In a modern setting, yes.
If it was on its own, yeah, definitely. And we can also talk a little bit about Pokemon because... they are pocket monsters, but also let me just explain. Lotad and its evolutions, as well as Golduck, are based on Kappa, which are part of folklore. I think you know where I'm going with this. So anyway, they have scales. They're kind of like got a turtle-like carapace on their back, as well as like a dent in their head, so they have to have water in at all times. This brings me to Sarazanmai.
We'll come back to that later.
No, I want to really push the point because you have vetoed me on this by just saying, it's got to do with creepy stuff to do with people's bottoms. And it does, but now I know why. It's because they're about Kappa.
We will talk about this in the outro. How's that sound as a compromise? On that note, though, there are Pokemon which are based off kaiju. You do have a look at Tyranitar's the obvious one, but the Aron line, which ends in Agron, that's actually based off a Korean kaiju story.
That's so cool.
Which is really unique. And there's a few other of those type of, giant heavy Pokemon which are...
Snorlax.
No, actually, that's an American kaiju. I kid. Supersize me now. Now, these animes that do have kaiju on them still aren't focused on the monster, though, are they? They are, unlike the live action is look at the destructive power of this, whereas they focus instead on the human character to fight against it. And this is a pretty core trait of anime itself. I mean, you can't really remove that. Yeah. I mean, many characters are made to be relatable with emotional depth, and then they're designed to serve as a conduit into the world of that story. And I mean, if an anime's ever given you the chills, made you cry or feel a rush, this is part of the reason why.
It's such a fascinating thing, isn't it? We connect with these characters and stuff like that, but we also can't go past a good Godzilla movie and just marvel at the
destructive
doom and the
powers.
destruction. It's what?
Yeah, because we can't relate to it. That's what I think is so good about it.
Oh,
And on that, let's talk about the trilogy of Godzilla films which have recently landed on Netflix.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
We'll be there on time. There's 20 minutes of ads.
Cinema Club.
Yes, Godzilla CG anime Netflix trilogy thingo. It's a trilogy of films released in Japanese cinemas and it's now on Netflix.
I loved it.
It was so good.
you know, this was originally going to be a series.
Really?
Yeah, it was planned for like over 24 episodes, something like that.
Oh, wow, that would have been fantastic.
I mean, I quite like how it ended up, but you know.
I mean, the series
makes me wonder what
isn't
could have
with
been.
the films aren't without their critics, and that's with anything, of course. But there's a trilogy of films, and there was Godzilla Planet of the Monsters in 2017, City on the Edge of Battle, and The Planet Eater in 2018. And they're sort of that hybrid CGI style of animation.
So we start off with our main character in a very sort of contentious situation. He's the captain of a ship. He disagrees with allowing
Well,
people
he's
to
not a captain, but he's a military captain.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a military captain. He disagrees with and they're in a situation where they have left Earth. They have had to leave Earth because of Godzilla.
They're drifting in space aboard a spaceship.
I've actually got the plot here. So giant monsters began plaguing the Earth in late 20th century. I've got words. Humanity is driven to near extinction by one monster that eliminated the others, Godzilla. It was at that time that two alien races with ulterior motives came to Earth to offer their assistance. Despite the help, humanity and its new allies had to abandon the planet and search for a new home in the stars, and after 20 years and no luck, the vessel decides to use a light-speed jump to return home, causing thousands of years to pass. And that brings us to just before the jump, where we have that combative confrontation between the captain, who they basically want to get rid of some of the crew.
The elderly, yes.
By sort of testing to see if they can land on this planet they've touted as a potential new place for people to live.
Whereas he's done his research and says it's fundamentally unlivable, which he then distributes to all the crew, and everyone on the ship starts being like,
kind of like
what's going on?
A bit of a WikiLeaks situation.
Yeah, a little bit.
Except
there's a very hopeless kind of atmosphere around this situation about the humans. It's like
it's done
everyone's
very
desperate.
well.
But during this, while he's confined to, he's locked away essentially, he's got someone leaking him data, and he manages to formulate a plan for how they could take down Godzilla if they went home.
Oh.
And that then he leaks to the whole ship as well. And suddenly everyone wants to go home and retake Earth.
And there's quite a few people who have never seen Earth.
Yeah, being born on the ship.
But they're keen to see it. They want to know what it's all about. And collectively, they end up, it leads to this jump. They, like, how many years?
It ends up being like an extra
20,000.
No, I don't think it was quite 20,000.
I think they thought it was going to be just under 5, and there ends up to be about 10.
It's thousands of years, and it ends up being double the time they thought.
Yes.
But, I mean, when you think about that, they could have just flown back for 20 years instead of having a 1,000-year jump. Makes you go, this is a plot device.
Yeah.
But guess what?
The world has changed.
It has.
Yeah, and Godzilla is still part of it.
He's still kicking. He's still alive.
Yeah.
So it's a hybrid CGI, as I said, and that's very similar to Knights of Sidonia, Blame, Arjun, Revisions, all which are on Netflix. And originally when these animes came out, they were a little bit jarring, that style, but they've managed to really refine it. It's really smooth, really nice, no juttery or anything like that.
We've noticed a bunch of hybrid animes came out with the last bunch of series.
Yeah, they have.
And I think it actually might take its place as kind of a new form of art style.
Yeah,
as far as the animes go. I mean, I will always adore hand-drawn, such as Studio Ghibli's, fantastic pieces. But, if I get a good story and it looks amazing, then I'm happy.
Well, I mean, that is 90% of the challenge, is getting that good story. I mean, if you've got the good story, the artwork doesn't necessarily have to be perfect.
This story I really enjoyed.
Oh, yeah.
There's something... Like when they land back on the planet, obviously they become aware of him and he becomes aware of them. But then there's this part where you see him, not just his head framed against the sky, and very slowly he turns to look straight at you.
They've
and
really captured the scale.
They
oh
really
my
did.
God. And it was just the slow deliberateness of it. It's sort of like just so horrifying because this thing doesn't care about your motives or anything. It's the king.
Yeah.
You're doomed.
The whole world has become revolving around this thing
Yeah.
as the top of the food chain and learning from
Yep.
it.
Exactly. This thing is part of the world. The world is part of it, and it is basically in itself a natural disaster, and nothing stands against it.
That's why I love the Godzilla films that much. I can't choose a side.
Yeah.
If I am on a side at all, it's very marginally to the left or the right, you know, because he's just the king of the jungle.
He's just doing his thing.
He's just honestly
Well,
like
it was the same sort of
he's
thing with the
not doing what's
recent
natural.
Shin Godzilla as well.
Oh, yeah.
It was fantastically delivered. It's the same thing where it's not designed to be a choosing side situation. It's observing the spectacle.
Now, I didn't get to see that one in full, but I got to see enough clips of it to know, oh my, I must watch this.
There was a point at which I did choose a side, and it was his side, and that was in the scene, like around the middle of the
Was it where
film.
the politicians appeared?
No. Honestly, it was when he's in the middle. He's amongst the city, and he's getting bombed. Like everyone's like, "All right, now we can go. We can attack him." He's getting targeted from all these different,
Different attack
different
types
sides.
and weapons.
Yeah, and it's like they're and the way, and he's just cowering under this attack, and it's like there's no sides in nature. He's just doing what's natural to him. It's just like I feel like he's more neutral, chaotic than
I'd say more nuclear chaotic myself.
But yeah, like it's just like unfortunate that the human species is getting the short end of the stick, and we always want ourselves to work, but. Like in this way, it's how he works as the allegory of the bombs being dropped in Japan.
But as you mentioned, like he is impressively animated, and something we did notice actually, because we normally watch our anime subbed, but occasionally we do watch dubbed, and this one's actually, despite it being CG and very clear mouth movements because of it, it's dubbed surprisingly well.
Yeah,
it is.
took me aback as well.
Yeah, a lot of the standout voice actors who do English dubs were part of the production for it, so that kind of makes sense. But what I did think was quite interesting is that it's, again, because it's gone through the anime style, it's focusing on the humans fighting the kaiju, and it's a very human survival story, which is, taking it from the standard kaiju format into a more anime format, and it's proved it can work.
And I've got a quote from the creator of Godzilla, Honda Ishiro. He said, "Monsters are born too tall, too strong, too heavy. That is their tragedy." How cool is that?
That's pretty cool.
There's ways you could examine that, I
This
think.
guy,
Greek tragedy style.
after work,
Yes.
it is, because they are brought down by themselves. And this guy also worked with Akira Kurosawa, or Akira, I should say, who directed Rashomon and Seven Samurai.
Well, the downside of this is the reception wasn't amazing. Critics saying the characters weren't that interesting. Remember what we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, we are there for the destruction of the
We're
monsters.
there for him.
They did say it proved that Godzilla could work as an anime, however. So it's like, isn't that kind of a bit of counterintuitive to what you've just said?
I think that might be,
little.
and maybe this is why animes of kaiju don't turn up so often, because
Quite
people
possibly.
miss the mark.
But I think that the fact that this has happened might cause a debate, it might cause a discussion, and might reassess people's focus on the anime genre once again.
Absolutely. Like, I remember when Pacific Rim came out.
Oh.
It's like, this is giving me exactly what I want to see.
I
I want
wanted
to see massive destruction.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see big fights. I don't care how ridiculous you think the storyline is. Storyline's not important.
Yeah.
It's the monsters.
You're
it's
here for the
massive
carnage.
Yeah, absolutely.
You,
And there's
you don't go and
something
watch
in that
like
as
Robot
well.
Wars, for instance,
Yeah.
because you want to learn about the people who
Yeah.
built the robot. You want to watch the robots
I
beat the
rea-
living daylights out of each other.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're going to be, picky about oh, it's not like this and it's not like that. Maybe you just
That's not
missing
scientifically
the point.
accurate.
Yeah,
It's not supposed to be. It's
makes,
giant monsters.
It has to make sense in its universe. It always does.
Now, on the note, not scientifically accurate, we should go on and talk about the animes that have been inspired by kaiju genre. And first off, we need to talk about Knights of Sidonia.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
That anime was a manga? That manga was an anime?
Manga-Kai.
Yes, Knights of Sidonia. It is a also CG anime series, which is on Netflix and was supported by them. It was written by Tsutomi Nehei, who also wrote the Blame series and Biomega. And he has a strong cult following because of his cyberpunk style and his mega-structured world art style.
Yeah, wasn't he an architect?
He previously worked in construction, but I'm unsure if he was an architect.
Obviously
I do
picked
know,
a few things up.
Yeah, but it would explain his design style, albeit. So, But the manga series is fantastic. It ran for 78 chapters from 2009 to 2015. It's been collected into 15 volumes, released in the West. It's been quite popular as well, and the Netflix adaptation is very faithful to that original content. But because of so much, we've only got 2 seasons, and we are nowhere near done.
What did you guys think of Knights of Sidonia?
I didn't get to read the manga, of course, but I saw a lot of the anime over your guys' shoulders. And, this was my first kind of introduction to the hybrid style that we just mentioned. And, oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm admittedly a big fan of it. I've read all of the manga. The plot is, once again...
Yeah, they've had to leave Earth because of Galna.
This seems to happen often.
Yeah, we seem to have trouble with keeping Earth. What a surprise. So it's the year 3394 where humans are living in a massive spaceship and dangerous aliens threaten humanity. It's 1,000 years in the future. Earth has been destroyed by powerful shape-shifting aliens called Lagorna, and mankind has fled into space aboard giant spaceships that they now call home. They are still targeted by the creatures, having to defend themselves while they search for a new home. Piloting mobile weapon units called guards. Here we go straight into the giant mech part of it. Humanity is able to take a stand against the enemies by destroying their cores. But the story starts with a boy called Nagate Tanakaze, who has been living in the vessel Sidonia, deep inside the mechanical labyrinth that makes up its inner core. He's never come into contact with anyone else on board of the ship since he was born. And he then accidentally falls into one of the production areas and gets introduced to the rest of the world. And it's got a lot of unique themes that you wouldn't see in a kaiju one because it is a human focus, but there's
a lot of necessity breeds innovation in it, isn't there? I love that.
And that is the thing that basically sets him apart from a lot of the rest of the crew is he is, for all intents and purposes, very human. Whereas the rest of the crew... less so.
Well, the major thing which is revealed in the first episode, and it's not too much of a spoiler because it is pretty much the core theme that the story is built on, is that there are a lot of people who are cloned. And that is through genetic cloning, not like one-to-one cloning. Like I didn't clone myself for a mini-me sort of thing. And
they have certain feats and traits installed into their bodies. Some of them... actually subsist through chlorophyll and photosynthesis rather than eating normal food. Like they will perhaps eat
just
once
to
a month.
survive. Yeah,
and I love the way that this series deals with that. It's not like look, this is this new thing. This is look at how different it's just like this is it.
Yeah, this is the thing that grabbed me about it. It wasn't the monster fights and stuff, though the action for it is
it's pretty
intense
well
and
written.
wonderful and so visceral and almost bloodthirsty in some ways. But no, it's that it raises new ideas, which I must have for a sci-fi kind of genre.
Yeah. Now, one of the other areas I did mention we do have, so we've got your mecha component, which is very obvious. You've got your sci-fi component because you're in space.
You've got your kaiju component because, whoa, evil aliens. Now,
the evil aliens, so the reason I feel this does fall into that kaiju genre, while it's not on Earth and it's not a single entity, the Gorna themselves tend to act as like a hive-like entity. So they can combine and come together, a la, Power Rangers. Stick more of them together, it becomes more mighty and dangerous. The putties. But it also likes to delve into what it is to be human, which, if you're looking at an anime for endless destruction, this probably isn't the one for it. It's not about cities or things being destroyed, but you will see destruction inside the spaceship and them blowing up a planet and a star at some point.
A lot of it is like, there's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of themes around isolation because they don't know if there's anyone else of their race in the universe that's still extant.
Because they're not the only ship that was sent out.
And absolutely, to add to that, the fact that the main character can exist in this ship that just defies the imagination for scale by living in its underworks, in its sort of abandoned, crumbling locations. What kind of a giant ship has such, an excess of space that people can just be lost for so long?
It is very much Nihei style, though, to just continuously build stuff bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh, and that is the funny thing. So, of course, Nihei also did the series Blame.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful discussion with someone else who has watched Sidonia and Blame, and he had just the most adorable and hilarious and just nightmarish fan theory.
Oh,
so
is this to potentially connect them? Because there is actually a connection in the manga.
Yes, there is.
So Blame in the manga, in Knights of Sidonia, the characters are watching Blame on TV.
Yes, it's true. In I think it's the second series.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens. But no, before he had seen that, he came up with this theory that the end of Knights of Sidonia, they find a planet, they colonize it, they create artificial life, and then the whole thing of Blame happens. That humanity can't get a break and keeps destroying itself.
That would be cool.
That was his theory. I was just like, oh my god, that's wonderful. And oh my god, the horror.
But one of the on the note of the human level of it, one of the things it does deal with quite interestingly, and I'm not sure if they deal with it tactfully enough, is that clones can be monogender, so they can be born with the ability to mutate into either gender once the person chooses it, which I feel like is probably the first reference to a true transgender character in anime that I've seen. Because before that, it is like Ranma, it's switching from boy to girl. It's not really trans in the middle, in the grey area. It's more of this is a joke, whereas in this case, it's taken very seriously with how, she chooses that she wants, mentally she decides that she would like to be female, and the body then adapts to that physique through it. And it can be seen as like a slight metaphor for how someone who might, feel like they're caught in the wrong body can then go transition.
Indeed, and quite topical, especially for when it came out.
Well, I mean, this is 2015.
Yeah, exactly.
It was out. Actually, same year the manga ended, it came out, and so he was talking about this back in 2010. That means in the manga, so that's almost a decade ago. It's quite a thing to be talking about back then.
I quite like that. I'm very happy with that, in fact.
Yeah. But we should move on to another giant one because we are unfortunately running out of time because we've spent so long talking about giant monsters. Let's talk about Attack on Titan.
Kawaii-Fi Radio. I think I watched that as a kid.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Back Catalogue.
Yes, and in this back catalogue, we're talking about something that's currently airing.
Yes. It did start airing a while ago.
Yeah,
now.
well, I mean, Attack on Titan began as a manga in September 2009, similar to Knights of Sidonia, and has since been one of the best-selling manga series of all time.
So best-selling, in fact. This manga in 2014 sold over 8 million copies, taking the place of One Piece, like dethroning it, taking its crown.
Wow.
Far out.
And that is very, very funny because the writer, Hajime Isayama, has mentioned in interviews that he was greatly inspired by the works of Eiichiro Oda and his works, including One Piece.
Wow, okay.
So the art style takes notes from that.
All I can think now is, once I was the apprentice, but I am the captain now. So it's a monthly manga, but it has got a strong following around the world too because of it. And as you mentioned, as of last month, it sold over 90 million volumes globally. More than 80 of those are in Japan. as in 80 million, not just 80.
Well, the rest of them are in Italy.
Yeah.
I thought it was Lupin.
It's got 119 chapters. It's still ongoing. 28 volumes out so far. Plenty more of them to come, of course. 3 anime seasons. The second part of season 3 is airing now.
And it'll break your heart.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll break your heart. It's just amazing.
I love it. It is consistently epic.
It just doesn't stop, does it? From episode 1 to episode, we're up to 58, I think we've already mentioned. It's just... It's drama and horror.
And then you've also got to take into account it spawned a range of spin-off novels, manga, 2 live-action films, 3 summary films, has won 3 awards for the series, and 3 more for Isayama's work itself.
And now you know how good it is. We should probably actually get onto the synopsis.
Yes, and that is over a century, humans have been living in settlements that are surrounded by 3 50-meter tall, gigantic, real thick walls. They've been given names. Wall Maria, yeah, yes, they think Wall Rose and Wall Cena, which prevent the Titans, which are just terrifying. There's these giant humanoid creatures who eat humans from entering.
Wall Cena? Can you see me?
John Cena.
I missed that. Shout out to John Cena.
The WWE.
Yeah, so the main character, who we start off with, is called Eren Yeager. He wants to join the Scout Regiment. The Scout Regiment are the people who sort of pick off the Titans and make sure that everyone's
they go
safe.
out the wall onto expeditions, having a look to see resources that they might be able to get and quickly bring back, or take out and test new equipment on these Titans.
Yeah. So this semi-idyllic setting is ruined when one day a 60-meter tall, remember the walls are 50 meters tall, a 60-meter tall colossal Titan turns up, and it kicks the door in. He kicks the door in, all the Titans walk in, and Eren has to watch his mother die because there's this real creepy Titan called the Smiling Titan. And it's like that's what I find so creepy about these things. They look like humans, like genital-less humans, and they are creepy. Their expressions don't change, and their movements are
unnatural.
Yeah.
I remember reading the synopsis for this before it came out, way back in the day, and I wasn't immediately grabbed by it because I was thinking, it's kind of like Jack and the Beanstalk.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking it was sort of that sort of thing. We just have these big oafish things in like raggy clothes, just sort of like, there'd be blood and gore and stuff, but it would be otherwise not that. But no, absolutely not. This is terrifying. These monsters, these Titans are just the scariest thing you have laid eyes on in a while.
So... out of the 3 of us, who has worked in retail?
Yeah.
They are the general public. They are the general public. That is what they are. And imagine if if Karen, who wants to talk to the manager, walks in and just doesn't change her expression and doesn't talk and just sort of flails and runs around and eats chilled. Well, that would be kind of all right. No, it wouldn't. It would be interesting. No, not interesting. It would be horrific, and that's exactly what the Titans are. They are horrific, like the general public. If you've ever worked retail, rant over.
You have no idea how accurate you are. No, I'm actually being serious here. The artist, Ashime Isayama, he got the idea for these Titans long before he wrote it. He encountered a drunken customer in a coffee shop.
What?
He was working in this little coffee shop. A drunken customer was unruly. He was bashing things aside. He was talking in gibberish. He was inspired by this man's inability to communicate.
Gosh!
And realized that the most dangerous thing of all is man.
The general public. That's
he
what
was
it is.
absolutely on top of it.
Increased to 10 times the scale and wielding a big stick.
Somehow I feel really validated. I'm
just
pleased,
listening to
I'm
you
validated.
saying that was just wonderful. It was just like, oh my goodness, I have this written down.
Oh my gosh. They
dear.
just... Ugh.
Well,
they're creepy.
It's quite interesting because before Attack on Titan was serialized, in 2006, so 3 years prior, he actually released the story as a one-shot. It was his first ever published work.
Oh, God, can you imagine that?
That
as
one
just a
shot won an award.
Oh.
3 years later, he then had written 2 other series and then wrote Attack on Titan was properly serialized.
Oh.
And, non-stop since then.
How's that for vindication? It's just like, I'm just going to write this as a short story. Oh,
That's
it's
so
that
good.
good?
Mhm.
And that's what I love about this. It's the story. I very rarely can pick where it's going next. They get hammered by these Titans. There's like very little room for her. There's a lot of very encouraging speeches given, but they're like with regards to them actually saving the day. Usually they scrape by missing like half the crew and an arm and a leg.
It's a pretty insurmountable odds that they're up against throughout the whole series.
Yeah, for you Game of Thrones fans out there, if you had characters that you absolutely loved and wanted to see to the end, strap yourselves in.
Yeah, this is very similar. And alongside the Game of Thrones comment you just made, I did feel like I needed to go back and rewatch everything leading up to each start of new season, because I was sort of like, did we just talk about that? Is that person someone that I should know about? But I feel like that's partly your fault, Kyle, because you're like, in the manga. Oh, I can't tell you. But it's so cool.
Well, I am up to date on the manga, and I think we're like another 40 chapters away to catch up as far as the TV show goes.
And I mean, that's the thing about the story. It's not just, human fight monster. There is a great deal of mystery surrounding how the world came to be in this terrifying state. And, oh God, it just keeps drawing closer and closer to the secret of every single episode until you just can't take it.
What I want to know is if they do plan to keep doing the series, then fantastic. But if not, where they're heading to now in the story, they could end the story there and you'd be fairly comfortable with it. But there is a lot which has happened after this story arc, which explains everything, explains where the Titans come from, what the origins of, the whole conflict with them is, why they're surrounded by walls, all these different things.
The man behind the curtain.
Yeah. And there are humans that are on the Titan side. I don't think this is much of a spoiler, is it?
No.
Yeah, there are humans who are on the side of these drunken general public customers who are like,
who could possibly defend these things?
These things are normally like about
the general public, that is.
They can start at like 4 meters tall. Imagine that walking into your shoe shop.
Sorry, I don't have a size 408.
I wish to speak with your manager.
Yeah. Oh, one cool thing. So, Mikasa, who's one of the main characters, she is very gifted at fighting. She was named after a pre-dreadnought battleship in the Japanese Imperial Navy. It's the only extant ship from that period. It's now a museum.
Wow. And
Levi, Captain Levi, very deadly, awesome, clean freak Captain Levi.
Named after a pair of jeans.
Inspired by Rorschach from Watchmen.
No way.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of a fun fact.
On the note of comic crossovers, the Isayama did create a crossover special in 2014 with Marvel. Attack on Avengers.
Oh God! Really?
Yeah.
Really?
The Avengers fighting. Oh wow!
Yep. Who came out on top?
I don't know. I've not read it. It was a one-shot special that they did. I think it might have been like a free comic book day sort of thing. But it was pretty cool.
Oh God! If that had run as a series, I can just imagine one issue just being Deadpool after being eaten by a Titan, hanging out in its gut, having conversations with the corpses or something like that.
I can see him sitting there with a disembodied head going, yes, it's quite interesting in here, isn't it? You see the red?
It's a little warm. So yeah, popularity of this thing was so good that it gained a live action movie or two.
Haven't watched it.
They weren't the Japanese live action ones. I think they tried to shoehorn in a romance arc. I think that was the main criticism.
But there's no romance. There's romance, but it's sort of like, okay, well,
understated.
We like each other, but the Titans.
Yeah.
There's things going on. This can wait.
And they're not sort of precious about it. They're not like, oh, but if only. They're like, yeah, all right, we've established this. Titans need to go.
So yeah, the movies were met with basically a 50% rating on Attack Tomatoes for both of the respective films. The
Attack Tomatoes, which is where you go to rate Attack on Titan episodes.
Attack on Metacritic. Now, this was... this kind of sparked Warner Brothers to seek the rights for the movie. They wanted to do their own couple of movies in the West.
Okay.
In 2017, initially... representatives for Kodansha, the magazine which runs Attack on Titan, they said, no. But
No.
thanks to some digging, as of November of last year, this will be going ahead right after the Akira movie.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
Oh.
it is confirmed. And this will be directed by Andy Muschietti, the guy behind the 2 recent It movies.
Oh.
And the horror film Mama.
Oh my god, are they using the cinematographer they used for It? Because he is absolutely phenomenal.
If they are, then we can only be guaranteed one thing. The Titans are going to look even more terrifying than they
I'm
presently are.
excited now. Oh, please let him be part of it.
Someone else we know will be producing this. One Masi Oka. You guys know that name?
It does ring a bell.
Hiro Nakamura of the TV show Heroes. Little Asian superhero who can stop time and runs around with a samurai. I loved watching him as a kid. But I've yet to find more than whispers about this. He is also tasked with producing a Mega Man movie.
I've never seen Mega Man.
Yeah.
I've also got a couple of other rumors that the writers of Paranormal Activity are attached to that project, so...
Okay.
We'll have to see how that goes.
I will.
But, I mean, that's a brief overview of them.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think we really had enough time today to talk fully in depth on it. But, I mean...
Honestly, it will do all of the talking for itself.
It will.
See it.
Yeah. You can catch it on a fair few of the streaming services, Funimation, Anime Lab, and so forth, so have a check.
What about the tastiest of streaming services, Crunchyroll?
I'm not sure. I can't remember who had the rights for it. It was either Funimation or Crunchyroll, but... I can't remember offhand who it was because it's by Wit Studios. They're not officially associated with any one specific streaming service, so their stuff's kind of all over the place. But we better get on to the end.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
So you promised me Sarazan Mai. I have not forgotten.
I was hoping you would.
Oh no.
All right. Sama Senmai is a currently airing anime series which is to do with a group of boys who turn into kappas.
Yeah, and Mappa, who do Dororo, are on board for this.
There seems to be a convenient naming convention there between Mappa and
Yeah,
Kappa.
but you guys kept putting me off because
I'm
you
sorry,
were like,
it's-
oh, the bottom stuff. It's
I've heard that the guy who writes it is a very specific taste. He's one of those people like Bakemonogatari where you might find the style of the storytelling not completely okay with you.
Well, I am keen to
So
give
it's
this a go.
to each their own kind of a
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah. The folklore tale is just one of the most strange because
is.
kappas want your soul, and your soul is contained in a little ball called the Shirikadama, and it is found in your anus.
In mine?
And these boys in this, I want to see how they're going to handle this because these boys break a statue of a kappa, and then the kappa comes and steals their Shirikadama. I'm not sure how they're going to illustrate that, but
I think I know
want to
exactly how they're going to illustrate that, and it's exactly why I wasn't too keen to watch it.
What is it rated?
I'm not
I'll watch
sure.
it for you,
because
okay?
You've got to remember that
I'll watch it for
Japanese
all of
ratings
you.
aren't the same as
Yeah.
Western ratings because Japan do its own thing, y'all.
I will give it a go, and
This
I'll
anime
tell
is
you
rated
guys.
Y for why.
So next episode we are going to be following in the trail and footsteps of giant monsters and talking about giant robots. So we'll be looking at mecha anime. We're looking at the origins of where it came from, what it means for us over here, because we've started seeing people building giant robots to fight each other.
Yeah.
How much
Speak-
Gundam am I going to have to watch?
Namely, Karatas.
I mean, like 30 series of Gundam potentially. No, I think it's like 26 at the moment. But
Oh, that's a lot.
Is it ongoing?
well, each Gundam story is self-contained in its own universe, but it has the same themes and robot style and so on.
Which we will get onto next week.
But we
Yeah.
will talk about Neon Genesis because we are saving that. We wanted to talk about it this week, but we thought, well, it's really more of a giant robot than a giant monster story.
Yeah.
And that kind of fits
Ish.
the tea. Ish. Either way, we'll be back next Sunday week, 2 weeks' time from now for the next episode. So stay tuned, and in the meantime, watch some anime.
And
have
I'll
fun.
watch an anime for everyone.
Yeah, you will.
We know what it's going to be.
It's going to be about butt stuff.
We'll see.
Oh dear. Either
Thanks
way,
for listening, everyone.
and we'll catch you next time. See you later.
Have a good week.